Okay, this is my hair day, so I'm heading out in about 10 minutes to get my hair done. Thursdays, I get my hair done. It's one of my luxuries down here that I can afford because it's really affordable to have my hair washed and styled. And it's a nice feeling when you live alone, frankly. It's a very nice feeling when you live alone and you may not have any company besides your little puppy or not even a dog or a cat. To have somebody tend to you in a non-sexual way. And I don't know if I feel glamorous afterwards, but I feel better usually. I feel like I look well cared for. That's my aim. So I've been watching some other videos by women. Actually, they're younger than me. They're like 70 and up. So they start. A lot of them are like, I moved to such and such country when I was 70, and now they've been at it 2 or 3 years. So they're in their middle 70s. And I also came across a woman who is in her 70s, who's in the United States, and she did a very interesting thing, and this was about economy. Because a lot of us move for economic reasons, having to do, well, for me, it was definitely having to do with long-term health care. Like, if I ever needed it, I knew that wasn't going to happen in the United States. So I was like, oh, I'm going to wind up in a county hospital with an IV in my arm, like drugged in a bed, you know. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. So once the Medicare, and Medicare is like, if you looked at Medicare, you know that's like, you got 90 days and out of here. So I thought, for me, it was Mexico. I already liked it and was not a big problem for me to go, except my language skills. Anyway, this woman lived in the United States, and what she did, because she has family, but they're not that close, or they are that close, but they can't take care of mom. She's in her 70s, she's able. She moved to another state that had very good, I think they call it Section 8. It's where the government helps pay your rent. And she found herself a small apartment, and I don't know what state she moved to, but you could look it up. States that have good, they didn't have a large population, so there was not a long waiting list. That was the big deal. She was in a state where there was a very long waiting list. And she has her apartment, and I think she said she was paying something like $275 a month, and she was on a Social Security pension of around $1,000 a month. And so that was solving problems. Another woman I checked up this morning, I hadn't seen her before, and she was like, you have to know what your economy is. You know, don't leave everything up to your husband or your partner. If they die, you won't know where your bank accounts, their passcodes are. I went, that's very solid advice. And also from the 1960s. It's like, are there still women out there who don't know? I think there are. I don't know where they are. And I hope they stop doing that today. Today, I hope they say, I need to know. I need to see the life insurance policy and make sure it's paid up. Make sure it's paid up. But who I've been watching are women who decided to move out of the country. And I think the major difference between us, aside from I'm at least 10 years older than most of them, is they lived conventional lives. One was a teacher, another one was a therapist, and what was the other one she did? Oh, one was a nurse, and she like burned out. And her name is Mora, and I think it's Mora Margaret. And she chose, interesting, she came to Mexico and she just started traveling around in her car with her dogs to find where she liked it best. And what she discovered is she didn't like the beach areas, they were too hot. She liked the mountains. And so she's up someplace in the state of Michoacan. A lot of people don't realize that Mexico has states, just like the United States. In fact, it's called the United States of Mexico. And she is in South Central. I am in Baja California on the North Pacific coast. A lot of people don't know that we have a North Pacific coast too, or that Mexico controlled most of the Southwest of what is now the United States. And I'm in Baja California, which is Lower California, which used to be part of Mexico all the way up to San Francisco. That's enough of the geography. And then there's a woman called Janice in France. And I think she used to live in California, but she talks about that she's from Georgia. And she, I think, was a school teacher. You'll have to check them out because I'm doing this in memory. I didn't make notes. And she clearly saw the marvelous Mrs. Maisel series, because that's her dream. And she's carrying it off, although she's not Jewish and she's not from New York. She's carrying it off. And she likes clothing and a certain kind of je ne sais quoi France. living. She lives out in Fontainebleau. And she also does meetups, which I would never do meetups. She's like, but she's engaged with her followers, and she's about 33,000 of them. I've forgotten how many Mara has. She has quite a few. Mara gives a lot of practical advice. And the other thing about Mora Margaret, or Margaret Mora, I think it's Mora Margaret, she's had several accidents up there. Her dogs pulled her over the other day, and she thought she may have broke her hip. The other time she walked into something, I think, and she had a huge bruise on her. It was like, ah. But she's a nurse, so she doesn't rush off to the hospital or the doctor. And she's healed them all. She is a good hour's drive from a hospital. I think it's Merida. I'd have to look that up. And that was a consideration for me. I wanted to be in a city where I knew there were good hospitals in case there was an emergency. I did not want to be going to a local guy. I just didn't want. I wouldn't want that in the United States, quite frankly. I didn't want it. I lived in a small town in Pennsylvania, Honesdale, for the longest year of my life. Yeah. Very cute little town. Very cute. Had a little ice raid the other day, which surprised them all. I don't know why, because it's an extremely conservative town, which actually also has a lot of poets and artists. Where are we going to go? And who's the last woman? Oh, eldergal. I think her name is actually Allison. And now she has the most followers. And I think it's because she's a little cranky. She's a little cranky. She always has a problem. It's interesting. And she also is very sort of self-aware that she has created some of her own problems, or maybe all of them. And she moved, recently she said, I'm going to France. And she went to France, but right now she's in Albania, Tirana, Albania. And she's very knowledgeable about the buy me a coffee thing and Patron. So she's actually, her biggest problem was she had no money, or very little of a pension. And she now recently published how much money she's making from YouTube. And she's making about $1,100, $1,200 a month. As you all know, my channel is not monetized, and I don't ever expect it to be. Not on my list of things to do. The lady that I came across the other day, now these are all women there, I think Mara is only in her 60s. The lady I came across the other day, she's Janice also, or Janet. It's called The Little Old Lady Who Could and Did. And she always had an interest in like 17th century France. And apparently what she did was sight unseen, buy herself a house in a small town in France for like 23,000 euros, which is, I don't know exactly, but probably about 30 grand USA. But it had nothing, it had a good roof and it had a good garden. And that was very important to her because apparently she's also an herbalist and she wants to recreate an ancient garden. She also had lived in sort of, I don't know what it is, but it's in Illinois where I guess there was communities in which that were French. Although, I don't know, so she might have like French relatives or something. Anyway, that's her specialty, 17th century France. And so what's really interesting about her channel is she very rarely talks about herself. She talks about herbs. She talks about like when she finds pottery, certain kinds of pottery, she explains it to us. So she, oh my God, she's really independent and she is not at all into glamour. And neither is eldergal. They're what I call, their style is granny style. White hair, and I don't know. White hair, I don't know what they put on, whatever they find. I don't know, I don't think of myself as a glamour style, but I would think of myself as casual chic. Like, I'm wearing some sort of weird little thing today because I'm going to tell you, it's cold at the beach today. It's been cold for about a week. I'm not complaining. I prefer this cooler weather to please don't make it 90 degrees. I just can't leave the house. So those women, I think, are interesting to take a look at because they are the three women: Mara, the nurse, or ex-retired nurse, Janice in France, who was a school teacher, the little old lady who worked in on French history, even in Illinois, and I guess on some sort of recreation things. So I don't really know what she did. She and her husband. Her husband died, and she just didn't know what to do. That's when she decided, okay, this is it. And her kids apparently thought she had gone crazy. A lot of people think you've gone crazy when you move to a foreign country when you're older. The other thing that doesn't seem to be of a major concern, it was for eldergal who had a tooth problem. So she went to a dentist and had a panic attack. And Janice had a panic attack last week too. She felt homesick, and as it happened, I had a panic attack. So we were. I think it was like when that happens, we're all over different world. I'm going, look to the stars. I'm not into astrology, but when I go, oh, why is this happening at this time, at this particular time? Although there is a lot of unrest and a couple of wars going on in the country, in the world. Oh gosh. So that's it. I'm gonna run off, get my hair done. I don't know if I'll look any different, but I'll look neater.